Hello, my name is Casey Harriet. I'm the R3 coordinator for the state of Oklahoma, and you're watching the Learn to Hunt series, Turkey Tuesday edition. And this is the second of the Turkey Tuesday series edition, and we are talking about scouting gear and setup. Today we have the same people here. We have Jacob Harriet, Lincoln County Game Warden, also my husband, if you haven't figured that out by the first episode. And then we have Jacob Tyson here.
Tall Jacob.
Tall Jacob.
Not her husband, Jacob.
Yeah.
And what do you do?
I'm also an R3 coordinator for the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife.
Yeah, specifying in fishing, and I'm in hunting temporarily. So, all right. Well, before, without any further ado, I guess we're just going to hop right into this.
Right into it.
So we're going to talk a little bit about scouting first, and then we're going to talk about gear and what all you need, what all you can get extra, and kind of how to hunt these birds.
Let's get into this crap.
What? Oh, fantastic.
You know what?
Let's
Let
put
me
a
just
slide
go
up there.
ahead and throw this up so there's a little context behind what Jacob just said. I mean,
I thought they could see that.
No, they couldn't see it.
Not yet.
Oh,
they
well.
can now.
Now you
but-
can. You guys are welcome.
Oh my
Anywho.
gosh. Okay. Well, we can go back to that. We're going right in. And we're going to talk about some crap. So put
right.
that back up
Right
there.
back up there.
Just, I feel like we should talk about it now. So when we preseason scout, this is kind of a funny thing that happens between birds, or gender birds. So a gobbler, if you notice, if you're looking, a gobbler has a kind of a like little C, little straight, little doo-doo there. And a hen has the little curly one. And that is actually, I don't know if it's proven by science, but it's proven by hunters at least. And that is how NWTF specifically recognizes the difference between a gobbler scat and hen scat. So let's talk a little bit about what else you need to look for as your preseason scouting.
That's all you
We got
need.
the important, that's all you need.
That's all you need.
Okay,
Yeah,
Jacob,
as
I'm going
long
to have
as-
you.
As long as you know that, you're
you're good.
Yeah.
set.
But no, so turkey season, right now we're at the mid to end of March. Awesome time to get out there and start scouting. So probably last 2 weeks, I've seen birds. They're breaking out of their winter flocks and they're going out and doing what turkeys do in the spring, which is finding hens and gobbling their heads off. It's pretty easy if you guys are on private land. Get out there and just start listening. You can listen in the morning and evening and just try to locate some gobblers. If you're on public land, same thing. Just get out there and start listening.
How do you locate gobblers with a shot call?
So, yeah, that's for one, they're going to gobble on their own. But you can, if you're impatient, you got a lot of stuff going on, or you just need to go out there and say, hey, are the birds here or not? It's not 100% effective, but it is effective. You can go out there, and I've seen anything, you can do a crow call, an owl call, a coyote call. You could slam your car door or yell at your kids and get these birds to gobble.
Your husband.
It's just a shock gobble. So basically, you're startling those birds into making a gobble, which is really handy for being able to scout.
I feel like it's really not a survival tool, though, right? As a coyote, if I'm going to howl and then find my dinner.
That's why they got wings. I mean,
I guess
they
so.
can get out of there. But yeah, so you can listen to those gobbles. Also, these birds, just how they live and attract mates is they want to be very visual and very apparent, and they want to be loud to attract hens to them. So just driving around, if you have a property with some road access, you can drive around, and more than likely, if there's a good field or good strutting zone, that those birds are going to be out there right now strutting.
For sure.
It's a great way to find them.
I think one thing to kind of tag along with that, to improve your success rate, is knowing what areas to focus most of your scouting on.
Yep.
So you're looking at those areas where you've got, say, some nice tree rows, nice roosting area along, say, a feeding ground.
Yep.
So
Absolutely. Yeah.
when are
We talked a little bit about that
stuff like that.
last week, is kind of knowing what habitat they like and then being there. I mean, it's as simple as
Absolutely. So it all starts with the roost tree. If you don't have good roost trees, those birds aren't going to be there. They might be there midday, but they're not going to be there early. But start with those roost trees, figure out where they're at. They, like I said, you can listen early mornings and late evenings. They'll be gobbling on those roosts. Even after dark, those birds can be gobbling a little bit. It's a good time to find them. That's usually when I do most of my shot gobbling is, right at last light, or it's just kind of getting dark and trying to find them. After that, their strutting zones. They need very short grass areas. A controlled burn area is great. Something where there's not a lot of vegetation, so they stand out like a sore thumb, which is great for us as hunters trying to find them, as they want to be seen by other birds.
Right. And if you're on foot looking actively and look for loafing areas and stuff, a lot of times you can see scratching. Remember the place we set up?
Oh, yeah.
Our tent we should have abandoned ship on that one,
we were
but
dusting feathers out of our way to set our tent up, and they roosted right on top of us.
yeah. But how we knew that, we were already like, this might be like right under them tonight. Is there a scratch? They scratched and everything. You saw dust kicked up and scratching areas.
Feathers and dung. I mean, it was.
Yeah, and then you see tracks obviously too, and so all that combined was telling us, hey, these guys either roost here or like hang out here after they get off of the roost and everything else.
But
So
we drove a mom car, and that's as far as we could get. So
that was my mom car. But yeah, that is kind of what you look for on foot. Like if you're really going to go into those areas instead of like calling from the road or whatever, is the feathers, the scratching, the tracks, the crap, as Jacob said. So you can also look at aerials if you're going to look at, and we'll talk a little bit about this on next episode of our public lands, but you can preseason scout by looking at aerials and topography of places. So if you're scouting in Western Oklahoma, that's going to look a lot different, or Central Oklahoma is going to look a lot different than Southeast Oklahoma.
absolutely, if you're in Southeast Oklahoma, just knowing terrain, roost trees are not a limiting factor there. There's 100,000 trees that they can roost in. What is limiting is, access points. So, even saddles or really good open flats where those turkeys can roost, or not roost, but they can strut around in, and having some bare spots where they can be seen. Old logging roads in the Southeast is huge for birds that are strutting.
What do you mean by saddles?
So a saddle is basically, picture there's two mountains, and in the middle of the two mountains, there's a low spot that's way easier to cross than the tip of the mountain. So they can either cross in the low spot very easily, or they can climb up the mountain to get over top of it. So that just would be a pinch point that those birds are going to use to go from ridge to ridge, instead of having to actually climb up the big peak of the mountain and go down. And it doesn't have to be a mountain. It can be in any terrain, but it's just the easiest point across from one thing to another.
Yeah, you definitely hunt them different in Southeast Oklahoma versus Central
Absolutely.
and Western, because topography is completely different.
Yeah, a lot harder, in my opinion, to find them in Eastern Oklahoma. In Western Oklahoma, it's really easy to find those birds.
Your sight lines are just so much farther.
Yep. Yeah. And on satellite maps in Western Oklahoma, you can really tell, okay, hey, there's a big group of cottonwood trees here along this creek. Or in Eastern Oklahoma, you can't see those big flats because it's underneath the tree canopy. So you really, boots on the ground scouting is a lot more handy. But that's, like we said, we're looking for feathers, scratching, poop, tracks. You can tell a lot about a turkey's track from just looking at it. The little turkeys leave little tracks. Usually your hens and your jakes. Big turkeys leave big tracks. Be cautious of wet mud and stuff like that. They can be smudged a little bit, but just good things to know.
Yeah.
I think if you don't know what a turkey track looks like, if you kind of just hold up like your three fingers, basically, it's, probably a little wider than that. But,
Yep.
Yeah. Wait.
Little. Yeah, there you go. A little
There's
short
two.
visual of it.
There's two little tracks there, but
Yeah. But okay, so to reiterate, if you're going to be hunting and looking at aerials in Central or Western, you can kind of look at, a good idea would to be look along riverbanks that probably have large cottonwoods, or which are good roost trees. So that would be kind of an area, or an edge line. Field edges is what I mean by that. That's something to kind of, and pinch points, because they want to travel and cover a lot of times. So you can look at that in Central and Western Oklahoma versus kind of hunting the topography more so in Eastern Oklahoma. And a lot of times we say, how we hunt in Eastern Oklahoma is we have a little cabin that we can, we just rent out, and we sit there with our coffee, my coffee and his water, on the front porch, and we listen for a gobble to go off. And then that kind of gives us the direction we end up taking off, because really you just don't know until you hear.
Yeah.
And you can do those owl calls and stuff, and sometimes you'll get something that kind of gives you a direction to go, because you're not driving around finding roost trees for them before. Yeah. Very different than when we get up before dawn and we go set out around the area where we know those turkeys have been roosted. So very different setup.
That's a good point. So if you don't have the luxury of going out there and scouting before season, it is super handy to just get up early that morning and go, where if I know where a bird is, I might set up specifically for that bird. If I have no idea where it is, I'm going to get up that morning, hope I hear something. If I don't hear anything, I'm going to go to what I've scouted out or think to be a good turkey area and just try to get those birds, maybe not coming directly off the roost, but go to maybe a feeding area that I think they're going to come to late morning.
Yeah, it's not ever too late. You didn't wake up too late to turkey hunt.
Yeah, you can turkey hunt all day long.
Yes. Okay, so now that we've talked about kind of like the aerials and like what we're looking for, let's talk about like what we need to go out there and do the dang thing. So let's talk a little bit about the turkey gun first off. Okay. Shotgun.
Yeah, so you can spend it. It's like anything. You can spend as much money as you want. You can spend as little money as you want. Your grandpa's single shot 12 gauge, has been sitting in over the mantle in your fireplace for years will work just as good as a $2,000 shotgun. Just keep it simple. Get something. The biggest thing, no matter how much money you spend, it's being comfortable with that. You want to practice with that firearm. Make sure you can shoot accurately. Make sure that you can load and unload it safely. So have that practice. Typically what I see is 20 or 12 gauge. Now I've seen 410s, I've seen 16 gauge, I've seen 28 gauge. There's the whole slew of different guns you can use. None of them are better than the other. It's just whatever you're confident with.
I think the biggest thing for turkey hunting, no matter what gun you have, is your choke.
Yeah.
Being able to tighten that pattern out to a longer range.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what a choke is.
Yeah, just being accurate is the main thing. So a choke goes in the end of the shotgun barrel and it controls your patterns. So like say you wanted to dove hunt, you're going to have a very wide pattern. You might have like an improved cylinder where those BBs or pellets that you're shooting are going to expand in a very wide thing. Because if you're like me, you need all the help you can get when you're shooting a little bird flying around. Well, a turkey, a lot bigger bird. So we want to have a tighter pattern. It's not like a rifle, but, a good pie plate pattern, a shot at, 20, 30 yards is very good. And you need to practice this beforehand. So you can't just go take a shotgun, put turkey loads in it and say, okay, I'm good to go. Go out there, get a cardboard box, draw a turkey head on it, shoot it at different distances and know what your yardage are.
Make sure you have 10, 15 BBs in that turkey.
Yep.
Right. Every shotgun I've ever bought, no matter what the price, does not come in spot on.
Yeah.
Ever.
No, absolutely.
Especially with different chokes in it. It's going to be different every single time.
Yes. And different ammo is going to shoot differently. Yep. So practice all that. And, turkey loads, they make some that are very, very expensive. So you might think about that. If you buy an $80 box of shotgun shells and there's only 5 shells in it, you're going to need a couple of those to practice with to make sure they shoot good through your gun. And the tighter your pattern is, the more important it is. So if you have a gun that's it's an accurate gun. It shoots super tight patterns, but that pattern is a little bit to the left. Well, now you might completely miss your bird. So now we need to go out and practice with that and get comfortable. Know what your gun and what your ammunition is going to do. So we talked about the choke, how it necks it down. They make specific turkey chokes. You can also use, just a modified or a full choke. Just practice with whatever you use ahead of time. Most guns come with a modified choke. You can put in, these chokes I didn't say, but you can actually unscrew and put different chokes in the same firearm in a lot of different guns. Some of them are built in, but other ones are exchangeable.
I like to add too that we're going to talk a little bit about how camouflage is important. Turkeys see very, very, very well, and so I would add that you probably don't want to take your super nice shiny, over and under out there that can catch the glimmer of the sun or something and just shine off. And it will tell you it's basically holding a mirror out there for them.
You can do it, but it's definitely better to be a little more hidden. Or they even make wraps.
Well, that's what I was going to say. If you have that's your only option, then take some tape or something and wrap it around it. Those shiny parts. Anything flashy.
Firearm tape, not duct tape.
Yes.
I think just trying to dull stuff up.
Even
yourself.
Just blend in. Yeah.
Yes.
Just blend in.
Yeah. So you don't want anything shiny, and even it'd be handy too because a lot of times when you're turkey hunting, you'll walk all day unless you're just successful start of the morning. So having a sling on is really helpful too if you want to add that. It's not necessary, not required, but having a sling on for being able to safely carry that firearm, especially if you're holding a turkey in one hand, you sling your gun over the other. It's pretty nice. So definitely want to talk about that.
Let me hop into ammunition while we were talking about the chokes and stuff. So ammunition for shotguns, they make specific turkey loads. They're great. They're kind of made for that, but they don't have to be. Usually what I see is a 4, a 5, or a 6 shot. Some shotgun shells have blends of those where there's 4, 5, and 6 shot all in one shell. There's different materials. So in Oklahoma, it is legal to shoot turkey with lead shot. There's nothing wrong with that. If you're hunting on a federal area, you have to have non-toxic shot, which would be steel or tungsten, something along those lines. But for the most part, your average hunter, you can use lead shot. 4, 5, or 6 shot are all good choices. Make sure, like we said, that when you shoot your target, you're getting enough pellets on that bird's neck and head to be a fatal and be an effective shot. We don't want to body shoot turkeys. There's just a lot of feathers, and with those shotguns, they can actually slow that down quite a bit.
For many reasons, we don't want to body shoot them because that's where all the yummy meat is,
Yes,
too.
yeah,
You don't want to be pulling.
tear up your meat either.
Yeah.
But a lot, I mean,
More
it's
importantly.
almost like they just bounce off there. But so think about that. Practice with your shotgun shells. You know, each gun that you have is going to be stamped on there what kind of shells it takes. Do not put 20 gauge ammo in a 12 gauge. Don't put a 2.5-inch shell when the gun's, don't put a 3-inch shell in a gun that's only made to take 2 3/4-inch shells. Make sure that your ammunition match what's printed on your gun. So that's usually stamped into the barrel. Match that to any box ammunition you have. Don't have a big, sock full of old shotgun shells and think, oh, this might be a turkey load or it might be a duck load. Let's see how it works. Make sure that ammunition's good.
Jumping in on the ammo, typically for turkeys, you're shooting 3-inch or higher.
Yeah,
most of the time.
In general, some 20 gauges. I've seen some 2 3/4 turkey shot.
That was that first one in Eastern. I had a youth 20 gauge, and I was, that was only 8 years ago, 8 years ago, and I was walking around with a youth because that's all I had at the time. And
stubby arms.
anywho, it was a little youth model Remington 870 and 20 gauge with 2 and 3/4.
And 2
Yeah,
3/4.
3/4,
Those youth guns, I like them. I mean, they're lighter, they're
light.
easy to carry.
Right.
You're not taking a whole bunch of long shots where you need to worry about recoil or barrel length. I mean, usually with your turkey guns, a short barrel, you need one shot, hopefully, and you can take care of stuff.
Yeah.
So you don't have to get fancy with the gun or ammo. Just make sure that you're effective with it.
Yeah, and it's just solid black, muted, nothing shiny on it, nothing fancy, but it did the trick.
Got the job done.
It did. Okay, speaking of being dull, let's talk about you. I'm just kidding. Let's talk about
Shots fired.
let's talk about camo.
Yeah, so camo is definitely helpful. When I deer hunt and stuff, I don't care 2 things about camo. It doesn't matter to me. I'm not worried about it. Usually I'm in green pants anyways. Pretty much living these things during hunting season, so I just wear green pants. Now turkey season, it's not crucial, but it does help. So I do like to wear camo when I turkey hunt. Not saying you can do it without it. I've killed a lot of birds not wearing, just wearing blue jeans and a t-shirt. It's not that big of a deal, but it does help. The best camo is to sit still. So turkey's eyesight is just amazing. You wouldn't believe how good these things see. They can pick up movement from a long ways. They can pick up stuff that's out of place from a long ways. But by holding still, they're a prey animal, so they're looking for movement. Any sort of movement's going to stand out to them like a sore thumb. So while you're hunting, camo or not, hold still. But camo is great. Gloves, face masks are great. If you're walking around on the field edge as a turkey and you look in the woods and there's a big white face looking at you, probably going to cause some alarm.
Yeah, I think they can recognize eyes, especially if I had one thing to pack in my bag, it would probably be a face mask.
Yeah, face mask too. And then another thing, your hands. When you're hunting, you're trying to sit still, you're trying not to move, but usually your hands are what's moving a lot. So if your hands are white, they're going to pick up on that white movement. That camo helps. It's not a sure-all, but it definitely probably helps break up your color a little bit.
Yeah, I'd say camo. I'd say camo is more important than. I don't think I'd ever go out in the woods without camo on hunting turkeys, but it's just your preference. Right. Yeah, depends on if that's all you have, then don't let that stop you.
No,
you're really just trying to break up the patterns, make you blend into the natural world better.
Yeah, but he's right. It's more so about motion than anything else.
Yeah. It's probably this year if I get to go turkey hunting, I'm probably going to be wearing green pants. It's just how it works out. So it works good.
So when we talk about, we can talk about camouflage, but we need to talk about calling because we talk about motion a lot of times. And a lot of times, if you're calling, if you're doing it all by yourself, there's a lot of motion involved in using a box call versus a diaphragm call that's in your mouth. And that's why I find it handy, to always hunt with somebody because a lot of times he's my caller. Yeah. So we can talk a little bit about the different types of calls. There is a ton of different turkey calls out there. And there's some basic ones to more advanced options. So you can kind of help me with this. But I see box calls here, which are those wooden ones. And
so a box call, it's got a chalk pad on it, and you hold it, and you're just moving your hand back and forth.
Yep.
That's your box call.
That was a great.
I know. I told him.
Don't ask me to.
You don't even need.
I asked him to bring his diaphragm calls and give us a demonstration, but he won't.
On all your calling, I will point out, people are much more picky than turkeys are.
Yeah.
So the first turkey I ever called in, I was 5 years old. We went turkey hunting. We didn't see anything. We're eating breakfast. a guy had given me a box call, and I'm sitting on the back porch just as a
Hammering.
5-year-old kid going to town on it. Well, sure enough, these birds start gobbling. And I go back and tell my family, they think I'm crazy. There's no birds out there. We've been hunting all morning. Well, sure enough, I called in 2 jakes and we were able to harvest a bird. That's a 5-year-old kid, didn't know anything what I was doing. You don't have to be a professional caller to call in a turkey. You just have to get out there and try.
Well, I'll go and throw it out there. I've been trying for like a year with a diaphragm call, and I have yet to figure it out.
Yeah.
So. Can you yelp with it a little bit?
A little bit.
Well, I'm
We're
sure
still in the beginning stages.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a very big learning curve on the different kinds of calls. A box call, super easy. Anybody can do it just about. I mean, they're very easy to use. What he's talking about is a diaphragm call. You actually put it in your mouth, and it helps you sound like a turkey.
Those are those little tiny ones that have like a half moon, that orange one right there. Yeah.
Yep. So those fit in your mouth, and you can take your tongue and kind of make calls with them. That's primarily what I hunt with, just because if I'm hunting, I'm usually hunting by myself. Or if I'm not, then, I have somebody with me and I'm not worried about shooting. I'm taking somebody else with me. Then I'll use a box call or something. But those mouth calls, hunting by myself, they're huge because there's no movement involved in them hardly, just your mouth a little bit. And they work really well, but they do take a lot of practice. I am by no means a professional with one, but I've called in a lot of birds with them. The call I actually use isn't even a turkey call. It's a coyote howling call that I use for coyote hunting, but it's just multi-purpose. I'm cheap. I just want to buy one call, so get one that does it both, and it works very well.
Yeah, for the locating and
so I can howl like a coyote or I can cluck like a turkey. It's the same call.
When we talk about camo, a lot of times you'll, and not something that you absolutely need, but it's handy, is a turkey vest. And I say that, it made me think of it because they actually have spaces for box calls and stuff, because those box calls, they'll kind of rattle around and they'll be like yelping and purring and stuff when you're walking, and you need it to be quiet. But those turkey vests will have a specific spot where it locks that lid down on it. So, and also if you want to get comfortable, those turkey vests typically have a little butt flap thing that comes out, and it's a little padded seat for you. Because most of the time when you're turkey hunting, you're just sitting up against a tree. I would say. So that's really handy to have. That's one of those luxuries that would be beneficial to have out in the field, but not needed. But it helps. They have all sorts of pockets for all these calls. I like the diaphragm call too because it's just smaller. You don't have to worry about carrying it. And a lot of times you lose it because it's so tiny almost. You can't remember which pocket you put it in. If you put the slide back up again, we can talk about those slate calls. And what that is that round call, and it's typically like slate or what is like, it's like a chalkboard almost.
Yeah, some sort of hard material. So the slate calls or pot calls, it's a little circle and then it's 2 parts through that little stick there next to it. And you take some sandpaper or something, scratch it up and get some texture on it. And you take that stick and you're just doing little circles and it's jerk, 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 jerk. And you can make purrs. They're beautiful calls. They make a lot of different noises that I can't do with a mouth call. I can do on those little pot calls.
They're what I would call kind of high maintenance though, because you have to clean them. They can't get wet. There's lots of things involved in getting that sound right. So, and there's just 2 parts that you have to keep up with, but it's still fairly easy to operate. I would say
they're pretty easy.
That and the box calls.
The biggest downside is just the maintenance and keeping up with them. So, if you got 2 things in your hands trying to call a turkey, well, you got, where's your gun at? Are the birds getting close? They're very beneficial, like the box call. If you're trying to locate birds or you're moving quick, you can get those out, chirp on them, put them back in your vest, and then keep hunting. But once you're set up, that's where I really like those diaphragm calls. Yeah,
diaphragm calls are probably the more advanced call. They're difficult, and so I always like to bring up an option. And I don't think there's a push-pull. Is that one? Maybe a push. So they have what's called a push-pull call, and it's like this little box with these pegs on each side, and you can actually mount them to your shotgun. And so what I like about that is it's probably even less movement than a mouth call if you're like having to bring your hand up and do this. It's a really good option. You mount it to your shotgun, and so you could be mounted up, having your shotgun shouldered, and you can push and pull. It's just a finger, a little push motion, and it'll yelp for you. I don't think it does more than a yelp.
You can do it's just practicing with it. You can do some other stuff, but basically you're pulling a spring. There's springs in there, and it's kind of like your slate call where it's moving. It's just moving a little deal back and forth, making those sounds for you.
Yeah, and that's fairly small motions, and you can do it, with your gun mounted already, shouldered, and so that's a really good option if you don't have time. If you're just thinking about like, hey, I'm going to try this year. I have no experience with a diaphragm call and you don't have anybody to go with, that is a good option for you if you're by yourself out in the field. There's also those wing bone calls, and they actually make those calls. If you want to put that slide back up, it's one with a lanyard on it. It looks like a bone. It's like a 3-segmented bone right there, and you just blow into it, right?
You suck on it. It's like
suck on it. Okay.
You're almost squeaking with your lips, but they it's 3 turkey bones put together. They make a very beautiful call. They are a little harder to play. I've actually only used one once, and I was just trying to make a sound on it. A little difficult, but like anything, you just need some practice with it. But it's pretty awesome that you can take the bone from the turkey that you harvested last year and make a call to call on one the next year.
That really is.
So really cool.
So there's lots of options out there for you in the way of calling.
And on that, my game warden side note here, electronic calls are illegal. So you can't have a recorded call on your phone and play it. Or if you have a speaker, you can't play an electronic recorded call. That is illegal to harvest birds within Oklahoma.
There you go. So good
You
point
want to
there.
talk about shot
Just
gobble
don't do
calls?
it. You're really not winning by risking getting a ticket.
Yeah,
Right.
not worth it. And you're cheating the system.
Yeah.
But you want to talk about shot gobble calls?
Yeah, we kind of touched on it earlier, but just in the calling world, let's talk about that.
As far as calls go, something that I like to have with me is either an owl hooter. It's a little box. They're actually really easy to operate. My kid figured it out, and that's all I hear usually during turkey season is owl hoots. But just a really nice, I make a little deal, owl hooters. Crow calls are real handy. Then we talked about those coyote calls. I can do it with a diaphragm. Most people have like an actual kind of deal you blow into for a coyote. And those shot gobbles, like we talked about, that's just to make a loud noise to get those birds to gobble.
Okay, let's also talk about decoys.
Okay.
Not necessary, but very helpful.
Yeah, so decoys are great. I've had hunts that the decoy made it. I've had hunts that the decoy ruined it, in my opinion. But they're really good to have. It's just basically a piece of plastic or a piece of wood that looks like a turkey. Mm-hmm. They make them out of foam, wood. Some of them are super realistic. They look exactly like a turkey. Some of them you're like, man, there's no way anything would ever think that's a turkey. But I've used those and been successful with it. So people are much more picky than turkeys again, just the right scenario.
We typically use a hen decoy, but there's jakes and gobblers out there.
You can use a hen, you can use a tom, you can use a jake. There's one that's like, they call it like a funky chicken, and it looks like something that you'd give your dog to chew on, but they still use it and it works great. So just get some experience with it. Anything will work better than nothing, so just try it and find out. Like anything, you can spend a lot of money, you can spend a little money. It's just kind of whatever you want to do. But there's different strategies with those decoys.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Like, how would you like to set one up if you were hunting like a field edge or something like that?
So it kind of depends. To me, the decoy is not necessarily to attract the bird per se. My calling should attract the bird. What it does do is give those turkeys something to look at.
Distract them.
Yeah, so if you're calling those turkeys, their hearing's amazing, especially you get into the easterns. If you call, they know where you should be. Even if they can't see exactly where you're at, that turkey knows the general area that there should be another turkey. And if they can't see a turkey there, they can get nervous. So if I'm calling, the bird comes in, he says, well, it's an open field with one tree in it. There's no turkeys around here. I'm getting out of here. He knows something's not up. But if there's a decoy, he's like, okay, I hear a turkey, now I see a turkey, and it might be just a boost of confidence for him. So that's a strategy I use. I will usually set the turkey up kind of almost behind me, if that makes sense, where it's not directly in line with me, but where that turkey comes in, he's focusing on that, and then I'm off to the side where I can get a shot, maybe get away with a little more movement. But there's a million different strategies you can use. Some guys will use a jake decoy, and those gobblers will just come in and whip them up and knock them off the stakes that they're on. Some guys will use a hen and they'll come up and try to breed them. So it's just very apparent. I've had coyotes attack my decoy. A whole bunch of cool stuff. It's really neat seeing what animals do to interact with those decoys, but you just got to get out there and try it.
I think my biggest thing for turkey hunting is like comfortability. Like the more comfortable you are in like your setup, the more still you're going to be.
Yep, absolutely.
The least amount of movement possible.
Yep.
Yeah.
Until you fall asleep, you don't want to get too comfortable.
Oh, turkey wood naps.
Yeah, so being comfortable is huge.
Right.
There's a lot of time I've had it where I'm sitting there, I have a hen, feet in front of me, and the gobbler's still not in range, and I have a little silkworm crawling on my face, and I want to smack it so bad, but I can't because I know I'll spook the birds off. So being able to have that ability to sit still is huge. They make great chairs, and they make vests with cushions on the bottom of them. They make vests with cushions and backrests on them. Make sure that you're comfortable out there, because if you're moving, you're not going to have a whole lot of success because they're going to pick you off. Their eyesight is just amazing.
Very true. So kind of going back to like the calls. So there's like a yelp, there's a purr. People don't really use gobble calls as much, but it's just not something we really talk about a whole lot, but people do it.
I've never used it.
But the difference between like what is it? Kiki?
Yeah, kai or kiki or whatever you want to call them. Turkeys make their vocalizations. There's such a huge range of it.
Super fascinating.
If you're like me, I'm not a good caller. I can make some yelp noises and I can make some clucking noises.
You do purr.
I can purr a little bit, but it's nothing pretty. But an actual turkey has such a wide range of vocals. And if you can mimic those, you're going to be much more successful. Where I kind of get by doing the bare minimum. There are some people out there they can sound just like a turkey. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, if you were to watch some NWTF calling contests, it is insane.
Yeah, they sound better than a lot of the turkeys, I think, out there, which it can happen where you're like, that's not a turkey. What actually ends up being a turkey? And then there's times you're like, man, that sounds so good. It's got to be a bird. Well, it's a person out there calling. So you got to just be careful with that.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, Jacob. Do you think you can overcall when hunting turkeys?
Yeah, absolutely. That was
my next segue. Yeah.
Yeah. So I grew up hunting Rios. Rios are very vocal, and I'm not going to say they're easy to hunt, but they are much harder than, different birds. So when I went to hunt Easterns, that was the number one thing I was doing wrong is I was calling too much. And I think I was just spooking birds off because it wasn't natural for that area.
We actually set timers because we wanted to make sure, because time moves slow in the woods.
When
you think it's been 30 minutes, but it's been 10.
Yeah. When you're just sitting there, you're excited. You're like, man, I've had to have been here for 30 minutes, but then you look down, you're like, it's been 3 minutes, So what we did when we went hunting Easterns to slow myself down and to limit my calling, we actually set a timer. And, I would do a very small segue of calls every, it was 15 or 20 minutes.
15 or 20 minutes.
And then we just sit there quiet and wait. And we had a lot of luck once we started doing that. But yeah, you can definitely overcall.
Because you're excited and you're anxious. You want to see something.
And a lot of times, when I was a kid and I started out turkey hunting, I didn't have a call, The best calling is just being where those turkeys want to be. If you've done a lot of good scouting, hey, these turkeys roost here and they're going to go here. If you just set up on that trail, you don't need decoys, you don't need a call, you don't need any of that. You're just in the right spot.
There's been plenty of hunts where we didn't call once. We just had a decoy and we set out and we knew where they were going to start, put on their morning show. And that's how we got a bird.
I've hunted areas that were very pressured or had a lot of hunting pressure. And if you called, you might as well. Yeah. You might as well not even be trying. But if you just get in there, you set up. Sometimes I'll even use a decoy, just set up in an area where I know those turkeys are going to be. I've been successful in that, where if I would have called, I wouldn't have had any luck.
If you didn't see the last episode, we kind of touched on those high pressure areas or high activity areas for turkeys, going from transitioning from, say, a roost zone to a feeding zone, and how that's a great place to kind of start your scouting, start looking.
Absolutely. Yeah, just find those natural pinch points and figure out where the turkeys are going to be. The more time you can put in before season, the better your odds will be during season.
Yeah, and if you don't see one where you're at in the morning or your first part of the hunt, give it a little bit of time, get up and go somewhere new.
Yep.
They're active all day long, like we talked about. In the
Decoys and calls are just a handicap for being a bad turkey hunter. If you're a good turkey hunter, you know where they're at. They're not going to be. You go out there and get one. But those calls and decoys can really up your odds in the woods. Yeah.
So we need to talk about a little bit about just where to aim on a turkey and the distance that you should probably never exceed. As a rule of thumb, we don't really like to shoot past 40 yards. That's a good say. And that's after that's after you pattern your shotgun and we do all the things that we talked about before that. So we want at least under 40 yards.
And practice at 40 yards, because I know a lot of shotguns and a lot of turkey loads that should never take a shot at 40 yards.
100%.
And on the same side, I've seen guys that are extremely accurate out to 80 yards. So know your equipment and know your limits, So if you're out there, you're practicing with your gun, you're saying, hey, at 30 yards and closer, I'm in great shape. But 40 yards, you can't. Well, don't go out there and shoot at 40 yards, because there's a good chance you're going to miss or even worse, wound that bird and maybe give him a slow death that we absolutely do not want to do. We want to make one shot, quick, clean kill, and get to the turkey fryer.
Right. And also, Jacob mentioned that first episode, normally turkeys, they flop and they flop around after you shoot them. Sometimes they will do that. They get stunned and they get up and take off. Yep. And so I think more than running up to the bird, mine didn't flop in that first episode when we talked about it. It didn't flop. It was dead. But if it's flopping,
you're just a shooter.
Yeah. As long as you're not coming at her.
Right. Yeah. if you get me off my train of thought, if it flops, don't run up to it. Let it settle down, or be ready for a second shot, because that guy could get up and take off.
I've seen that happen.
It has happened a lot. So instead, just be ready for your second shot, and keep your gun shouldered and make sure he settles down and expires, or be ready for that second one. And we like to shoot them. Did you see that white spot? Sorry, go back real fast. I was almost done. We like to shoot them in that little white area right here. That or the head, honestly, I don't think there's a wrong or right way there. You don't want to shoot them any lower than that. Obviously, we don't want to be picking pellets out of our meat. And like Jacob said, it can kind of deflect some too.
Yeah.
So the head is where I like to aim, but then, that right there is just as good of a shot.
Yeah. So this is with a shotgun, you want to aim for that neck and head. It's not protected by feathers, and a very humane shot. Now you start shooting that body and all sorts of weird things can happen. It's amazing how tough those feathers actually are. They can stop the bullets. We didn't really talk about it, but if somebody was an archery hunter, trying to shoot a turkey in the neck or head is very difficult with a bow.
Right.
They make some specialized broadheads that are made for that particularly. But if I'm an archery hunter, I don't have to worry about my arrow bouncing off a turkey. An arrow's not going to bounce off a turkey unless you got a little kid bow. But I'm going to aim right for that wing joint and try to, shoot through the chest cavity just like you would a deer, which is easier said than done because there's a lot of feathers and it's hard to actually see those vitals. But with archery equipment, we are going to shoot right for that wing joint into the chest cavity, where a shotgun, we're going to aim for the neck and head.
Yeah. They do have those, they're literally called guillotines, broadheads for.
They are very effective. If you hit them, they will remove the head. Very humane way to go.
I think with that white spot that we're looking at here, you have same as you're shooting a chest cavity for a deer or any other big game species, you're looking for an area with the greatest area of being
vitals.
able to miss.
Yeah.
If you're aiming for that spot, you miss high, boom, you've still got a kill shot. Whereas if you're aiming for the head, miss high, or your gun's not patterned right.
Yeah.
Shoot right over top.
Got a complete miss there.
That's true. If you aim there and you go high, you got the head. If you aim there, go low, you got possibly the heart and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's a good point.
So on your shotguns, most people I just have a bead on my shotgun. End of the barrel, there's a little circle on it. That's the bead. That's what you use to aim. Or with a lot of times rifles, they'll actually have a front and a rear sight. Now, I have seen shotguns that have the front and rear sight on them. For a turkey, for me, it's not necessary. I've also seen people use red dot sights, which is a very effective and more accurate way to do. But for me, just a standard bead, that's all I need. I don't need anything fancy. I don't need a front and rear sight. Just that bead, I'm going to put it right there on that turkey's neck and squeeze the trigger when he's in range and just trust my equipment.
Yeah. Okay, now what do you do? And without going into the next one of regulations and how to check in your bird, what do you do after you seal a deal, So there's a few things that we have to do to avoid wanton waste. We have the breast of the turkey. You want to field dress these guys, or not field dress, but harvest them. Yeah, but there's a way to take the meat off, and there's not a good way to show you on here with that. But they're actually fairly easy to debreast. And take just the bird. You can do it in a field. You can take the breast, just carve them right off of the sternum and the bone, and then you can also get the wings and the legs as well. And the legs are a little tougher, but nothing a pressure cooker can't handle, and the wings too. They make people make great soups and stuff. But those turkey breasts are gigantic, and you have to at least take the breast off the turkey to avoid wanton waste.
Yep. So. Like she said, it is our job to harvest that meat. That's why we hunt. This is a natural resource that we can safely manage and use. So that is some great meat. A turkey has a lot of meat on them.
Right.
One turkey breast is huge, and they got 2 of them, and there's a lot of other meat as well. But wanton waste is basically shooting or killing an animal and not utilizing it. So if I just went out and shot a turkey, said, "Oh, that was fun," and threw it in the ditch, that would be wanton waste.
Or just take its beard off of it.
Yeah, or just take the beard or take the feathers off of it and waste the rest. So if you get caught doing that, you actually lose your hunting privileges. So it's a pretty serious deal. I think it's like an $800 ticket. But just as hunters, we want to be good hunters. We want to be good stewards of the land. We want to utilize that resource to its fullest potential. So we've actually done some good videos, and I believe they're on our website.
Yeah, I was going to mention those.
But of me fully breaking down a turkey, when I process a turkey, I take the breasts, I take the wings, and I take the legs. There's not much for the coyotes to eat when I get done with the turkey. And it's all fantastic meat, different recipes. It's really, really good. But the main thing is we want to make sure that we're taking care and utilizing as much set as we can. For as far as wanton waste goes, as long as you're breasting the bird legally, that's your requirement.
Yeah.
And that's so easy to breast out a bird.
Oh, it's so easy.
Literally, take some feathers off the breast, and you're following the sternum down.
Yep.
Take your knife, slice each side, and follow that rib cage,
And just get a big
you're
old
pretty
chunk
much
of meat.
done after
Yeah,
that.
you don't even have to take the pluck or anything. You just slice it and pull the skin back, and you can
Right.
peel it right off. Also, you don't have to get into the body cavity at all. It's
Yeah.
not yucky and dirty at all to get into these birds. And
And if
get
you
'em.
want, you can pluck the whole thing and just,
You can.
and just have a big old, Thanksgiving turkey dinner. So there's lots of ways to do it.
Yes.
Legally, got to harvest the breast. I will say this is another issue I have a lot of issues, or another problem I have a lot of issues with, is carcass disposal. So it is illegal to dump your carcass within a quarter mile of any public dwelling, water source, or county road or a highway. So don't just go out and throw your carcass in the ditch. If you have property, you can go put it on back in the ravine, no problem. Those critters are going to clean it up quick. Everything wants to eat a turkey, but don't go kick it off the side of the road. Don't go throw it in your neighbor's yard. Be respectful of it.
So say you've got a public land hunter who has just gone, sealed the deal, got his turkey, breasted out, he's legal. What would be your recommendation as a game warden for him to do with that turkey?
It depends on where you're at. If you're in a huge landscape and you're just breasting that bird out and almost packing it out, completely fine. What I would prefer, especially I'm in a more urbanized area, so there's not a whole lot of big landscapes and stuff. Clean that bird. It is 100% acceptable to put that bird in a trash bag and put it in your trash service. Nothing wrong with that at all. You're not going to get any complaints that way. You're not going to have any issues. Just do that. Don't go dump them out. Don't leave it in your backyard and let your neighbor's dogs come over and mess with it. Take care of it and make it look good. You're an example as a hunter, and we want to make that a good example for people. A lot of people oppose hunting. They don't like it. We don't want that. We don't want them to oppose it. They can be neutral on it. That's fine with me, but I don't want them thinking negatively of a hunter.
We don't want to give a reason.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Sure.
be respectful of the animal, be respectful of the meat, and utilize it to your best ability.
Yeah, what Jacob was talking, kind of circling back to the processing. So we did 2 videos pretty early on during COVID era. So excuse the lack of production value there, but
I'm not good on TV.
well, he breasted and we did the wings I think we did it all. And so just look up turkey processing on our YouTube channel, and then also we did a video over how to mount a fan and using the borax method and dehydrating it all. So that's pretty fun. You can do it start to finish all by yourself.
Awesome.
Okay, so I think we covered all the gear and setup and scouting side of this. So
Well, I got one more thing for you. So just springtime, there's going to be a lot of ticks, a lot of mosquitoes and stuff out. So it's a good idea to have some sort of plan for that. I'm not a huge fan of just the regular bug spray, but there's a deal called permethrin you actually treat your clothes with, and I live by that stuff. I'm in the woods all the time. I'm in the ticks all the time, and I treat my clothes with that permethrin, and it really helps. There are a lot of tick-borne illnesses and mosquito-borne illnesses that you can get, so you want to be very cautious of that. If you go out, check for ticks when you get home. You don't want to get any sort of disease. The quicker you can get those ticks off you, the better you are.
They make tick pullers on
Yeah.
Amazon or
Kind
whatever
of like a keychain.
website. Yeah,
Yeah.
and they are the most beautiful thing. Like come shed season, when I'm in the woods every weekend, I could almost guarantee that I get at least one tick every time I'm out there. And those little tick pullers, like she said,
Yeah.
they're keychain size
Really?
every time.
I got my tick pullers right here.
Your thing. So I guess it's kind of, we can talk real fast because it made me think about it. Like what's in like our gear bags. So, what we want to do is if we're hunting all day, we want to make sure we have water. We have lots of snacks. Get you something high protein, get some jerky in there, something like that. We make sure we have maybe some bug spray and some, even if some sunscreen or something too, because a lot of times it's hot. And dress in layers because it would be springtime. It's it's cold in the morning, hot in the afternoon too. Yeah. And also that jacket, when you roll it up to take your nap in the woods, that turkey nap, it's a nice little pillow. But yeah, those are kind of like the main things. To have your call, have your tag. We'll talk about what to do a little bit in the next episode about how to tag your bird and everything. But make sure you have something to tag your bird or your Sharpie, something to attach it to it. What else?
Take some rubber gloves, a knife. I'll be real honest. I'm dirt cheap. So my hunting setup for turkeys is it's a hat with a face mask on it, I put a camo shirt in it. I put 3 shotgun shells in my turkey call, and then my tag and a pair of rubber gloves. That's my turkey setup.
He's a minimalist.
Ear protection is great to have. Some earplugs or some electric earmuffs. That's great. Protect those ears. These shotguns are loud. That's a good thing to have with you. But you can get as fancy as you want. I've seen people with vests without pockets, and each pocket has a different flavor of candy bar in it. And I love those guys because as they're walking around, I'm stealing stuff out of the back of that vest. But just find something you're comfortable with. It doesn't have to be fancy, or it can be super fancy. It's just whatever you like.
Yeah.
I will say I'm not a glove guy, so baby wipes are
There you go.
my go-to.
There you go.
That's another one.
Nice.
Well, good. I like how we all have our own little.
Yeah,
Right.
everybody's
Specific.
different. Talk to people. If you're not a hunter, you're getting into it. Talk to somebody who does it. Just because they do it one way doesn't mean it's the right way. It's just a way.
Different way.
So steal pieces that you like, discard it, things you don't. And after a while, you'll kind of have your own turkey kit.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm going to wrap this one up. So hopefully you've been asking questions in this chat and we've been addressing those for you. But yeah, I didn't address that early on, but if you watch the first of the series, then you know that. So next week, we're going to be talking about public lands, a little bit of ethics and regulations with the old green jeans here. And then we'll close it up and send you guys out on your way to the turkey woods. Thank you for joining.
Good luck.
All right. Thanks, guys.